Good afternoon, everyone. I hope everyone's having a good week and a good Tuesday. I apologize for the delay in logging in. There is a lot to cover with respect to yesterday's board meeting. A lot of good information that our team and the administration and the board specifically is excited to share. So I'm going to do my best to make sure that we go through each of the agenda items as quickly as possible, but also making sure that there's an opportunity for you all to ask any questions that you may have regarding some of the discussions and dialogue and ultimately decisions that were made with respect to the agenda items at last night's meeting. So I'll go ahead and start it. And once again, if you all have any questions, we'll make sure that we provide some more feedback and dialogue as we go through. The packet was pretty extensive. We did actually get all the way to the letter Y on new business. We weren't able to get to the letter Z. So it's just an indicator of just the many agenda items that we had at last night's board meeting. So I will share, I wanted to take a quick moment to highlight our mission moment for last night. We did recognize two of our students that were instrumental in attending the Board of Nursing meeting that we had last month and really telling the story of why the college specifically needs the return of the LVN to ADN bridge program, which I'm happy to share it has been approved by the Board of Nursing. We also took a moment to highlight our employees within maintenance, also within our campus safety department, who, as they always do with the work that takes place across the college, are making sure that not only are we comfortable on campus, but also safe. So I want to take a quick moment to thank JC, Catherine, and Dre from our campus police department for just all of the support that we get throughout the year. If you get an opportunity to run across them, I would encourage you to also just acknowledge them as they were recognized by administration and the Board of Trustees as part of last night's mission moment. So I'll go ahead and get started with item, it's going to be 9A. And that specific agenda item, we went over the consideration and possible action regarding the transition of the Pleasanton instructional site to a Coastal Bend College Enrollment Center model and authorization for myself to take all actions necessary to implement the transition plan. This was approved by the Board of Trustees at last night's board meeting. I know we've been providing you all with some insight on just some of the strategic planning specific to the Pleasanton site and area. I know Dr. Barroso gave a really great presentation regarding enrollment and enrollment initiatives that enrollment management is leading with our marketing teams and our business office team. So they've been doing a really good job to get students the services and support that they need and getting them registered, but also making sure that they stay enrolled and that they have supports across the college as they pursue their education at Coastal Bend. So I will provide some added insights because I think this is a very important agenda item with respect to the plan. What is the vision with respect to the enrollment center model? And really our approach is transitioning, right? We're revamping and re-envisioning how we service our students. I shared with you all in many meetings and discussions that I've had that we really need to make sure that we're meeting students where they are. And the reality with respect to the Pleasanton campus or site, instructional site, is that a lot of our students are taking classes online. We reviewed the data and we've identified that a lot of the students that actually facilitate any type of coursework from the college and register are online students within our online course offerings. So with respect to the face-to-face instruction, that we haven't seen that growth. However, we do know that there is a need for us to continue providing our services to Atascosa County and specifically to the city of Pleasanton. I will share that we had the privilege of meeting with city leadership last week, and part of the discussion was advising them of the high online course offerings and students actually registering for courses within an online modality and this enrollment center model concept. So the approach will be that we would have advisors housed in specific and strategic locations throughout the college district. and also just providing that basic level of service with respect to admissions, registration, financial aid, advising. However, the instructional offerings would be limited as we move forward with this concept. We are exploring avenues and locations within the city of Pleasanton, but also in other strategic locations like Kennedy and also Falfurrias. I will, Dr. Blightry, if you're present, if you want to maybe chime in as part of some of the plans that we have with this enrollment center model. However, I do want to just give everyone an opportunity to ask any questions of what this looks like. There will have to be a teach out process for students that are currently registered at that site, and we'll be working shortly within the next few weeks and the next couple of months to have those communications sent to the coordinating board and also SAC COC as we undertake this enrollment center model. I think it's a very important strategic priority for us as a college in the long-term growth and viability of CBC. And we want to make sure that once again, we continue to offer these services to our students. It's just the model is going to look a little different in how we go about doing that as a college moving forward. So after that, in meeting with the city manager and mayor, they understood our operations and the needs that we have within that community, and they were very supportive, and we will be meeting with them likely within the next week or so to explore possible sites or new locations for this enrollment center concept. We want to focus on high traffic areas specific to Pleasanton and these other cities that we are considering. For example, many of you that have traveled to Pleasanton recently should know that there is a Chick-fil-A right across HEB. That is a high traffic area. There's a lot of storefront properties that are within that vicinity that would allow us as a college to, one, not only be able to provide services to students where we're more visible, but it'd be easier for students to access those services within those locations. So VP Blightry, if you want to maybe add a little bit more context, and we can field some questions as well, because I know this is a very important topic on the agenda.
Yes, sir. So the main premise is we were meeting with Real Transportation. We were meeting with the Alamo Transportation. The whole concept is trying to find ways to bring our students from Tilden to the closest campus, when really we uncovered we can travel to them. Instead of finding these remote ways to have the students travel to us, predominantly to sign up and then take online courses, we can travel to Tilden, we can travel to Falfurrias, we can travel to all of the 9 counties in our service area. So if we're saying success happens here, here is wherever our students are, and it's on us to go to the student, not to expect the student to come to us. So that was the base premise behind this transition of moving away from the instructional side at Pleasanton, where 80% of the students or 90% of the students are taking online courses inside of that county and never stepping foot inside of the building, versus providing those advising services closer to where they are. So now we're mitigating those barriers and granting them access in the modality and the format that they are wanting, not one that they have to conform to. And that was the driving force and feature behind the enrollment center model, is just us expanding our footprint to serve all 9 counties that the legislators have dubbed our responsibility. Any questions?
Okay. We may have some questions that come up, but we can definitely come back to this topic if necessary as we field the Q&A. So I'll move on to the next item on the agenda, item 9B, consideration and possible action to appoint CBC representatives to the Bee Development Authority. Really, this item was a recommended change that we had with representation on the BDA. The way that had previously been structured is we often had community members that were appointed on behalf of the college to serve on that board. However, as part of the new standard operating procedures that we are being very intentional to make sure that any college representation that serves on an external board is either a board member or a current employee. VP Secord was appointed to the B Development Authority, I'm sorry, as part of last night's meeting and authorization on behalf of the Board of Trustees. And part of that consideration, more importantly, is making sure that anytime we're talking to or having discussions with our industry partners on program development or needs with respect to workforce training, that our VP of instruction is part of those discussions and can advise on what type of resources may be needed with respect to faculty, supplies, right? The list goes on, curriculum, and it just allows us to streamline the support that we're providing our community members and some of the work that they're doing and developing our economies here locally. So a huge congratulations to VP Secord for being appointed to this specific board. I would encourage you all that are interested in supporting the college in our community representation to speak with your respective director within your department or your VP. There's a lot of opportunities that we have at the college in our representation across our communities, and we want to make sure that if you can be part of that and help us support in that work, that we are also making use of your talent and your expertise and your knowledge. So please let us know if it's something that you'd like to engage in, and we'll be more than happy to have those conversations. Give me 1 second. Okay, so the next item is item 9C, consideration and possible action to ratify a lease with Bring Head Start. Basically, this is a renewal of the agreement that we have for the space that's here at the main campus in Beeville, across the street by the tennis courts. This is a continuance of pretty much that lease. We are able to generate some revenue for that space. And you can see the contract as part of the board agenda and packet. The amount of the revenue that we generate through this partnership and collaboration is $4,000 monthly. So in aggregate over the year, it's $48,000 that we have or generate in revenue for operations as part of this partnership. So it's been a very good partnership for us, and we want to continue this work moving forward. However, as part of our yearly reviews of agreements and leases, we do have to get a board authorization or reauthorization in this case to make sure that we can keep that collaboration going forward. The next item is item 9D, consideration and possible action to ratify the Upskill Coastal Bend Memorandum of Understanding between Education to Employment Partners, E2E Coastal Bend. Just to give you all some insight, which is something that I shared with the board at last night's meeting. This partnership, initially the college had agreed to support financially an advisor position that focuses on career advising specifically within the Coastal Bend, and they support students seeking enrollment at any institution of higher education. Initially, when we had our discussions with the director that facilitates this grant or this initiative, we advised them that we were looking to support this work moving forward. However, it was something that we were going to have to fund year to year. The way that the previous MOU was written, we would have to fund it in the amount of $50,000. That our preference was to just hire additional advising staff that would focus on making sure that our students had access to the support services and enrollment services that are specific to CBC, as opposed to a generalized approach for any institution of higher education throughout the region. So in those discussions, we had decided to terminate this contract last year. However, E2E was able to apply for some grant funding that they allocated, so they're able to keep their advisor on site that they will be funding from year to year. So we'll help support them with in-kind office space, and we'll continue this project and this collaboration moving forward as they identify grant funds through the coming years. The next item, I'm going to go ahead and skip around here just a bit if that's okay, and we can definitely come back to some of the other agenda items, is item 9F, consideration and possible action to approve the FY26-2027 employee staffing plan. This is a new document. I would encourage you all that are not familiar with the board book online to access it. You have access to the full board packet and the respective attachments that we've reviewed and that we review at each board meeting through board book online. And you can actually download things like the staffing plan if it's something that you're wanting to skim through and read. The staffing plan is a new document to CBC. As I shared with the board, it's not a document that's new to higher education. And really what it is, it outlines all of the budgeted positions that the college has for the upcoming fiscal year. In our case, academic year, which also aligns with the fiscal year and the appropriations that we get as a college. So this document, just to be very, very clear, outlines every single budgeted position for the college in the upcoming year that the board has approved. And it also outlines the individual that is seated within that position and the amount of pay in salary for the year for that individual or that employee or the employees across the entire college. This approach to transparency is our way of making sure that we have good internal controls with respect to pay and parity. Just to give you all some insight, and it's one of the things that I shared with the board. We want to make sure that as administration, we're being fair in the review process of compensation. So this document also serves for you as an employee to be able to review and evaluate. We just want to make sure that the board often has information with respect to any concerns where pay may be for whatever particular reason. And this guiding document allows us to be transparent. It allows us to share this information, which is public information, with the college community. And it serves as, once again, a great internal control in that parity across the college for seated positions and also pay equity across the college. I want to take a quick break because I know there's a lot of information that's being shared, and I do want to open up for any Q&As, anything specific to the staffing plan, anything specific to the MOUs or the lease, or the Pleasanton Enrollment Center model that you all may have. So give everyone a quick few seconds or a minute to ask any questions that you may have so far.
As a reminder, if you go to the Q&A tab, then you can type in your questions.
No questions? Okay. So I'll keep on with the agenda. Item 9G under new business, consideration and possible action to approve the proposed 2026-2027 compensation plan effective September 1st, 2026. This is a standard document that the administration, I would say specifically our HR team, brings to the board every year, and it sets the pay ranges for each of the positions that we have at the college. I will share that one of the biggest adjustments this year with respect to the compensation plan were the faculty pay scales. Just to give you all an example, the previous entering pay rate for faculty with an associate's degree was a little bit over $43,000. We wanted to make sure that we start aligning faculty pay with market value and that we can be more competitive and retain our faculty at the college as they educate our students. So the biggest adjustment in this year's compensation plan, which also affects the staffing plan, it also affects the budget, which I'll share a little bit of more information in detail on with respect to salaries, was the adjustment in the faculty pay scale specific to not only the associate's degree, but at the bachelor's level and the master's level. The new starting pay rate for an entering faculty with an associate's degree is $50,000. So in that process, we also have to align the other pay rates for other credentials at the bachelor's and master's level. And we also have to look at faculty that have been at the institution to make adjustments and make sure that they're not falling behind in our pay scales. Basically, it's a market adjustment that has to be made. I'll share a little bit of more information on that with respect to the budget. I think that's probably the biggest component or somewhat change within this upcoming year's budget with respect to faculty compensation and pay. So we're very proud of that. Part of that work or what's allowed us to do this is really the approach that we took to contract management this last year and making sure that every contract that we had across the college was being evaluated and assessed to make sure that if there was an actual need that we were making use of the services that were being provided by those contracts, and if not, that we were having some very open conversations with those vendors to either terminate those agreements or realign the agreements to the actual needs of our operations. So the next item is item 9H, consideration and possible action to approve the proposed annual operating budget with pay raises if approved. I will share, I think probably the focal point of this item is with respect to the cost of living adjustment for this year. We have taken a conservative approach to the cost of living adjustment, and the amount or the percentage that was approved by the board yesterday was 1% for staff. There's some other information that I do want to share as we get further along in the agenda, which is also important in making sure that we recognize you all for the work that is taking place day to day and the work that you do in supporting not only our students, but also our faculty and staff. I will share that the focus and the priority this year was in making sure that we aligned the pay for our faculty across the college and making sure that it aligned with market industry. So the total amount that was invested within the budget or change as it pertains to faculty. So faculty did not receive the 1%. There was upwards of about $300,000 that were added to the faculty pay within the budget in order for us to align the market that needed in order to keep up with the equity changes across the board. Dr. Lytle, if you're in here, would you mind just giving a quick overview of that? Because I think that information is important for the team.
Just one moment, sir. I need to make her a presenter. Just a second.
Thank you.
Yes, so we did realign with the faculty. That's about a $6,200 increase for the faculty. We took a 1% for most of the staff and added it from your salary. So if you take your salary and add 1%, that's pretty much what you have. There were a few other market adjustments that we did. But overall, our salary actually went up a little over $300,000 for this year's budget coming up.
Thank you.
Sure.
And if there's any questions, we'll be more than happy to answer or provide insights. I think right now would be a good opportunity for that. Okay. So the next item that I did want to cover and go over is, and sorry, I'm skipping around here quite a bit because there's just a lot on this agenda. It's item 9L, consideration and possible action to propose a tax rate, adopt a planning calendar, and schedule public hearings if necessary. We did take a proposed tax rate to our board at last night's board meeting. That proposed tax rate approval ultimately has to take place next month, in the month of September. This is assuming that the board does approve. So we have to set the planning calendar and provide proper public notice. So I would encourage you all, if you're interested in this specific topic, once again, to visit Board Book and download these agenda items on anything related to the meeting. And I think what we'll do, because we haven't done it in the previous town halls that we've had, is we'll share the link to the Board Book. Once again, we want to be overly transparent, and if you want to review any of these documents online, they are accessible to you, and they are accessible to the rest of the public as well. The next item is consideration and approval of a resolution approving and ratifying the tax year 2025 tax roll submitted by the B County Tax Assessor Collector pursuant to section 2609. This is a standard process that we have to facilitate year to year. So we brought this for basically ratification to the board, and it was approved. The same thing, this is the next item on the agenda, item 9N, consideration and possible action to approve the 2026 tax roll submitted by the B County Tax Assessor Collector pursuant to section 26.09. Once again, the board did review that tax rate and approved it. And it's something that we have to, it's a process and a procedure that we have to follow year to year in a report that we get from Michelle Mattis, who is our tax assessor collector within B County, basically acknowledging and accepting the tax rate that has been set and the amount of properties throughout B County that we expect to generate some tax revenue from. So that's basically what that report is, or those reports are. The next item is item 9O, consideration and possible action to approve the Texas Education Code section 51.3525 compliance certification. This is a yearly certification that we have to submit to the coordinating board by September 1st. We'll be submitting that tomorrow. And basically what it is in summary is colleges across the state are not allowed to have any type of diversity, equity, and inclusion offices. Any type of trainings for faculty, staff, employees that focus on diversity, equity, inclusion, or any type of employment practices that would give applicants leverage over another on any type of diversity, equity, and inclusion variables. So we, as a college, the same way any other college, have to make sure we certify this yearly, and we'll be submitting this notification to the coordinating board tomorrow since the board has approved of the confirmation. So item 9P, consideration and possible action to adopt the Coastal Bend College Board of Trustees 2025-2026 self-evaluation instrument as the official instrument for the 2026 annual board self-evaluation. The board is required through policy to self-evaluate each year. This is us just bringing that new or revised instrument to the board for review before they can actually make use of the instrument. As I shared with the board last night, there was not really any substantive changes that were made to this year's instrument. The last year's instrument had reference to the interim president. We made those modifications in language that way it was in the correct tense. And some small minor modifications that were made also just to make the instrument a little bit more user-friendly. So once again, the instrument is online. You can review it. You have access to download it if it's something that interests you and you maybe want to look at or have some feedback that you'd like to provide. That is always appreciated as well. The next item, which I think is it's a wonderful initiative, and I want to thank the business office and the HR team for really allowing us to put together this information and data so quickly so we can get it to the board. As I mentioned earlier, with respect to staff, with the constraints that we have this year, with respect to the state appropriation reduction, right? And the amount that we expect in reductions this upcoming year that exceed upwards of about $1 million. I will share that we, as a college, as a sector, and as an institution, exceeded the expectations that we had in awarding to students at CBC. Really, one of the issues that not only CBC is having, but other colleges across the state, and you may have seen some news articles recently and within the past couple of weeks outlining this challenge, is that the state didn't expect us to exceed the amount of credentials that we awarded as a college and also as a sector extent. So therefore, it just wasn't budgeted for. And that's why out of the 50 colleges across the state, 46 colleges are receiving reductions in their expected state appropriated funding for this upcoming year. That we're having to adjust budgets for and really be very strategic and intentional about how we compensate employees, where we invest our budgeting dollars over the next year, and how we move the institution forward long term. So this next item, and let me pull it up really quickly because I don't want to provide any misinformation. I think it's okay. Here it is. Okay. Consideration and possible action to approve use of unrestricted funds for retention payment for regular and part-time employees. The board did authorize, as part of last night's meeting, for the college to issue retention incentive payment for regular full-time employees in the amount of $1,000 and a retention incentive payment in the amount of $500 for regular part-time employees. Dr. Lytle, would you mind providing just an overview of when that is expected to be dispersed? I don't want to provide any misinformation, and we will be sending an email out with respect to this. That way you all have it, just a formal communication. So be on the lookout for that. I will share just very quickly some of the things that are some of the requirements that the board also approved of in this minute order. Is just the eligibility for this retention incentive. And basically the eligibility requirements are, let's see here. They, as employees, we have to have been hired on or before March 1st, 2026, which represents at least 6 months of continuous service with the college prior to August of 2026. We're in an active employee status with the college as of August 1st, 2026, required to be in good standing with human resources and hold a regular full-time or regular part-time position with the college and are actively employed by the college on the date of the board approval and through August 2026, the August 2026 payroll in which the retention incentive is issued. So Dr. Lytle, if you want to provide maybe just some clarity on when our team, our full-time employees can expect and part-time employees can expect this retention incentive payment if they are eligible. Okay, we'll come back to that item because I know it's important. I did make a quick note, but we'll definitely make sure we come back and get you all that information with respect to when that retention incentive payment will be dispersed. The next item is item 9S, consideration and approval to utilize cooperative purchasing programs. This is just us getting approval from the board to make use of the co-ops that we currently have in place. There is a list on the minute order. I won't go through the bulleted item list, but it's something that as part of this year's financial audit, it was recommended that we bring this to the board for authorization and make sure that we had a record of their approval for these specific co-op vendors. So that was approved by the board at last night's meeting. The next item is item 9T, consideration and possible action to approve term contracts policy DCA local and termination mid-contract policy DMAA local upon first reading due to special circumstances. One of the changes that was being recommended as it pertains specifically to contractual employees as part of this policy review is delegating more authority to the president in terminations of contract mid-year in the process. The current policy, the way it's structured, that authority is retained by the board and it's extensive. And it's one of the things that we shared with the trustees. It requires a hearing and it's very involving. And we really wanted to make sure that we were able to streamline this process as much as possible, both for the college and for the employees that this at some point may or could impact. I will share that this item 9T was tabled by the Board of Trustees last night. There was no action that was taken. The board has requested additional clarification or review of the policy language. So just to kind of overshare, there was no official action taken on item 9T. It was tabled, and it is something that we may bring back to the board at some point. The next item is consideration and possible action to approve revisions to board policy DEB local fringe benefits. One of the recommendations that we are looking at right now as an administrative team, and I will share for the college, is adding a wellness benefit to our benefit package for CBC. And as part of the minute order was being recommended is for employees to full-time benefit eligible employees to receive up to 2 hours of paid wellness release time per work week, not to exceed 1 hour during any workday. This is something that we're seeing more commonly now within higher education. Central Texas College, for example, has this framework. It looks a little different, but it's the same concept. Collin College also has this type of wellness benefit, and it really is allowing our employees to find that work-life balance with respect to, exercise and mental health resources and services that they may be needing to access throughout the work week. We want to make sure that, once again, we're taking care of our employees in the best way possible, and this is one of the frameworks that we're looking at in order for us to do that. I will share that this item was also tabled at last night's board meeting. The board has asked that we look at standard operating procedures and guidelines and really how this would be managed if at some point it were to be adopted at CBC. So we'll keep researching this specific item, and at some point, once again, this may come back to the board for review. The next item is consideration and possible action to approve revisions to board policy DEC local, compensation and benefits, leave and absences upon first reading due to special circumstances. This was approved by our board of trustees at last night's board meeting. This item specifically, a lot of the clarifications that were included in this policy review were just outlining that, or being very specific to state in the policy that paid leave is not compensated upon employee separation. It's kind of inherent or assumed within the policy. We just wanted to make sure that it was clearly outlined and written in within the document. The same thing goes for sick pay or sick leave that may be accrued. The college historically has not paid for that. And within our current policy, that's not the process that we have. Paid leave and sick leave are not paid. Once again, we wanted to provide that clarification in the language and the policy. I will share that one of the other changes that was outlined and was shared with the board is the vacation leave payout. And currently, or within our previous policy, that was paid out even in instances where we had gross misconduct instances for employee conduct. In the new policy revisions, that is not the case. Anytime there is egregious or gross misconduct, the vacation payout would not be paid upon employee separation. So we wanted to make sure that we made it very clear in the language and provided that clarity to the college community at whole in the new policy language and wording. The next item 9W, consideration and possible action to authorize the president to execute the allocation of the Federal Internal Revenue Code Section 179D, energy efficient commercial buildings tax deduction for the Benton Hall dormitory. It's a standard process that we have at the institution to delegate the standard tax deduction to contractors that work on projects for us at the college. This specific item was also tabled last night. It was not approved. The board has requested additional information before they reevaluate and assess whether or not they will be approving that. So once again, item 9W there was no action that was taken on it, and it was tabled for a later meeting potentially. We're almost closer to the tail end of the agenda. We're working very quickly through this, and I will take an opportunity to go back through some of the items. I don't want you all feeling like we're rushing through this, but I do want there to be enough ample time for any Q&A for any specific questions that you may have. Item 9X, consideration and possible action to approve the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board Students Acceleration Program 3.0 Grant Award for Coastal Bend College. As I shared with the Board of Trustees last night, I think it's important to give credit where credit is due. I want to thank Dr. Barroso and Dr. Blytry for spearheading this initiative. And Dr. Blytry, if you don't mind just giving us a quick overview of this grant and its intent and what we hope to accomplish as a team over the next couple of months. It'll give me an opportunity to go and grab some water really quickly and refresh my throat.
Yes, sir. So we received the SSAP grant, and what this grant is specific for is it is going to fund 2 career coordinators for the institution, ultimately propping up a career coordinator department. And their whole job is to meet with students during their final year of Coastal Bend College and connect them to employers and get them employed prior to graduation. So they'll be working with students on their majors. They'll be working with students, getting them prepared to enter the workforce. And then connecting with employers is actually going to be the huge part of their job set. Getting the employers to come and interview our students on site, giving our students opportunities, almost first pass opportunities at particular jobs. And that way we can connect the workforce to the student as opposed to graduating, letting the student go free and see where they land. So this gives them more of a connection into the workforce, or that's the spirit of it, and that's the goal. That about sums that up, Mr. President.
Thank you, VP. And then lastly on the agenda, we have item 9Y, consideration and possible action to approve a 1-year renewal agreement with Ellucian for our colleague, software maintenance and managed cloud services. This was approved by our Board of Trustees at last night's meeting, so we are moving forward with the 1-year extension on this platform and this solution. And I will share that we're currently in the process of exploring other possible solutions that may benefit the college and our operations and our students long term. So just keep an eye out for that as we have those discussions potentially within the next couple of months as well.
So we
Mr.
do
President.
have, oh, you beat me to it.
Go-
We
go
do
ahead,
have 2
Amanda.
Q&A questions there for you to go over, and Dr. Lytle is back on the call if you wanted to give her a moment.
Okay, let me read through the first one. With the Pleasanton site transitioning into an enrollment center and possibly more enrollment centers opening up down the line, what does staffing these centers look like or entail considering the conservative budget? Good question. Also, Tilden was mentioned. Do they have a very low population compared to other districts? Is the focus on this district due to our specific service area? Follow-up question, are we focusing on other areas other than our service area map? Good question. So currently what our service district, right, that's where we're allowed to have operations. And I want to be very, very specific. Answer the first question, the second question first. We cannot facilitate operations outside of our service district area, the same way that other colleges cannot facilitate or open up an enrollment center within the Coastal Bend, right? It's part of the legislature, the mapping. We're just not allowed to do that. It's a little different for dual credit because of House Bill 8 and some of the other regs that have changed over the past few years. But with respect to traditional enrollment center concepts and also facilitating instruction, we're not just able to subjectively do that because we feel we could compete in that space, or we may be able to provide a different level of service. So we are restricted to our current service district area as it pertains to traditional enrollment and course offerings. So with respect to the staffing needs and what that looks like, the way that the model currently works is we plan to basically have advising staff members or student support specialists actually circulate within those specific locations throughout the week. We are also looking at being housed within our public libraries and our local school districts to facilitate the work of that employee or those employees to make sure they have an adequate workload. So once again, part of this process and us being very strategic in how we approach it is we want to make sure that there's a definite need. We know there's communities where there are, for example, I would say that Kennedy is one of them. Falfurrias also looks like a very viable option. and we'll also explore some other spaces outside of the Pleasanton location. So we're not planning to just hire individuals and put individual in seats. We want to make sure that there's a true need, that we evaluate the data and the feedback that we're getting from the community before we continue expanding. But it will be more cost effective for us with the overhead costs. The reality of the operational cost involved in the Pleasanton location, the amount of electricity doesn't change, right? The spacing, the cleaning, the deferred maintenance on the equipment at that location does not change, even though most of our enrollment within that area is online. Dr. Bligey, I don't know if you want to maybe provide some highlights in the data as it pertains to enrollment at the Pleasanton location.
Yes, sir. So the Pleasanton location had about 375 students online, fully. We had an average of 105 students that would take a class on campus. And so when we factor in nursing and cosmetology, now with cosmetology not present at the Pleasanton campus, that reverts it down to the nursing program solely for the entire site. So that was some of the data that was portrayed as far as the enrollment in Pleasanton. Now, with that being said, as we look around our service area and we look at the types of students that are enrolling in our institution with the 25 and plus for the adult learner, also the displaced high school students that did not matriculate into college, we're seeing opportunities for 300-400 students across different cities inside of our service area that we're not in. And we have no connection to that city or county or space. And we have no way other than social media to actually engage those individuals and provide services. So with that, there's roughly 700 people that we should be connecting with every year that we're just not there. And so those are some of the driving statistics. Is there anything else I need to clarify, Mr. President, or?
No, that's helpful. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I know we have let me make sure we don't miss any questions. And I know see if Dr. Lytle's in here to provide some of those clarifying questions that we have with respect to the retention incentive. For John Gossai, what type of baseline college/university size was used for faculty compensation adjustments? I will share that when we undertook the TASB compensation study, we did look at similar colleges of our size, which are medium colleges. So your Victoria colleges were part of that review and that research. We also had local ISDs, which are also from an employer standpoint, our competitors, right, when we begin talking about recruiting talent. But we also took the approach of looking at large size institutions that, and really when you undertake a compensation study, the approach is, what is the aspiration? Where does the institution hope to be in the next few years? I would say, to answer that question, it was medium size and large size colleges. Obviously not the Del Mars, not the Laredo colleges, the South Texas colleges, the Alamo colleges, because they're just from a student enrollment standpoint, they're at a much higher proportion of enrollment. Just to give you all some context as to, and I want to be very open and clear with you all, is how far behind market we were with respect to faculty. Is once again, the starting base pay for a faculty member starting at the college under the previous compensation model with an associate's degree was a little bit over $43,000. And making that jump to $50,000. Other institutions like South Texas College, their baseline starts at about $55,000. So this was a much needed and substantial improvement. It really puts us in line once again with colleges of our size, but also begins looking at the aspirational goals that we have as a college and our growth. So I will share that it's something that we should be very proud of. Our faculty drive the mission at the institution and making sure that we educate our students and our staff support that work fundamentally in everything that you do every day. but it is very concerning when we are that far behind market. And those of you that don't or have never been part of a compensation study, the reality is when we're looking at TASB data, we're looking at data from the year prior, because the new data doesn't get compiled and released typically until October, November, December, when we submit those reports to TASB for the upcoming year. So we're always operating a year behind. Even in this catch up, I think we did an amazing job with the recommendation that we had to the board, and it was much needed. But there's still a lot of work that we plan to do moving forward, not only with respect to faculty, but also our staff. And I will share, the approach that one of the reasons that we also took this approach on focusing on faculty is a lot of market adjustments that we did over the fall and spring semester, specific to staff. Give me a second, sorry. Specific to staff positions, we did that early on because we already had initial data from TASB on certain positions that were very far behind market, that we began aligning as we identified cost savings and positions and salary savings both in the fall and spring semester. We hadn't been able to do that specific to faculty. So we decided to do that as part of the upcoming year staffing plan and compensation plan. So I feel we've done a really great job of trying to bring salaries across the board, both on the faculty and staff side, to market as best as we can with the resources that we have. Obviously, we still have some work to do, but we're not able to do that comprehensively unless we take a very aggressive approach the way that we have with faculty this year. Is Dr. Lytle available?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Dr. Lytle, I know there were some questions. Are grant employees considered regular employees, and are they eligible for this retention incentive payment?
Yes, grant employees are eligible for the retention. And they're considered regular, it's just that they're paid out of their grants.
I know another question we had is just when our HR team expects to process this payment for employees.
It's going to be on the September 4th paycheck. That way, because we're running payroll right now, there's no way I could go through 170 people and add them into the system. So it's probably going to be on the September 4th. And guys, just remember when we do this, it's gross, so that when you see it on your paycheck, it's going to show gross, but you will have taxes taken out.
Thank you for adding that, because yeah, it is important.
Mr. President, there's 2 more questions at the top.
Okay, let me refresh this. When will this increase be effective? These changes take effect September 1st. If you're curious to see, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Lytle, the changes for the upcoming year as it pertains to your specific pay and salary, you can visit the staffing plan.
Yes, you can.
Which is reflective rates for the upcoming year. And compare
Visit
that
your
with what
staffing
you're currently.
plan, or also you can actually just take your salary and multiply by 1%, and that will get you close. Or you can always come and see us.
Oh, I think I missed the most important part of the agenda item. Do you want to cover this one, Dr. Lytle?
Which one is that?
Was there approval to a 4.5-day work week?
Oh, I was going to ask you that myself. Yes, there was. We start it next Monday. I'm getting the Cougar Mail ready to go now. So we will go back to the 4.5-day work week starting Monday, the 24th.
Yeah. Great questions. I'll kind of just give it a few seconds to prompt any other questions or inquiries that you may have. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Lytle. With that being said, a few minutes, so I'm gonna go ahead and stick around, through 5, and I'll be here in my office in case, as always, any of you have any questions. I do want to thank you all for all of the hard work that you all put in serving our students. As I mentioned, We've done our best with the resources that we have to make sure that we continue with the benefits that we have in place, like the 4.5-day work week, and that we also make sure that we are realigning our pay structures across the board for the college to support you all in the work that you do. So thank you. We appreciate everything that you've been doing for the college and for our students and for our communities. And I'm looking forward to the upcoming year. And also, we have a fall convocation coming up pretty soon next month. So I'm sure we'll have some exciting information and news as we get to that event also.
Mr. President, we have a new question.
Yes. Let me refresh. Give me 1 second. Yes, there will be guidance procedures provided for the Pleasanton transition. Part of the work that Dr. Blydery's team is currently doing is working on the notifications that are required to the coordinating board and SACs. There will be a teach out process for students. We will coordinate with staff and faculty at that location. So this it's a process that takes time. Yesterday's decision is just once again authorizing administration to begin having those conversations and formulating the plans that would allow us to move forward on this new model. So I want to be very clear as well. This is not we are transitioning our approach to providing services at the Pleasanton location. This should in no way be perceived as us no longer being present in that community. So I think we need to be very mindful of that. Our communities want us there. The Pleasanton community wants us there, and having this conversation with the city manager and mayor, I believe it was this week or last week. I apologize. It's been somewhat of a blur. The dialogue was productive. And they understood some of the changes that we need to make operationally to be able to provide services in that area, and they want us there under this new model. Part of the discussion that we had is we're likely going to meet with them within the next week or two to visit some sites that they want us to consider for this new space and this new location as a quote unquote storefront. Good questions.
That was the last question, Mr. President.
Well, thank you all for joining. We'll go ahead and end this town hall, and we'll see you all again for our next town hall after next month's board meeting. But once again, if you have any questions or anything that we can provide clarification on, please meet with your supervisor, meet with your respective VP, or feel free to stop by my office, and I'll be more than happy to provide any type of support as well. Thank you.